My name is Maciej Pietras. I'm lead cinematic animator at CD Projekt Red. I've joined the company almost 4 years ago. I joined during the Witcher production, and then I worked in both expansions. And now I'm leading a team of cinematic animators, and our main responsibility is to create the all narrative animations for the Cyberpunk 2077. During the Witcher production, we actually started discussing internally within ourselves what's going to be our next game, right? And we actually came up that a lot of us actually played Cyberpunk 2020 pen and paper RPG, and we realized that this is just a perfect setting for our next game. And even though it's a vastly different universe where the game sets in, we found ways that thematically this game is really this setting is really up to our nook. To be honest, I think if you think about The Witcher and compare it to Cyberpunk, like in The Witcher we had open world and a super heavy narrative driven game, right? And that's how we did The Witcher, right? And in Cyberpunk we are doing those things both at the same time, but while layering on top of it our interactive scene system for dialogues. So what it does is basically it aims at making sure that the player is always engaged into the game, right? In the game, and we aim to do that trying to seamlessly blend between the gameplay and cinematics. And when we are doing that, you actually can get to the point when you're playing the game and you're moving through gameplay, through shooting, through doing missions, and when you're doing missions you enter scenes. And in the demo you could actually see many situations like that when we actually didn't pull out the player out of the experience, we kept in. So in order to, like, if I can describe it quickly, I'm talking to you right now, we're engaged in conversation, but then I look at the camera and I point at it and I'm asking you about the lenses you're using, and then you can answer that. And it's all in the same setting, and what it creates is this I think really nice feeling of immersion, which we really aim for in Cyberpunk. So when it comes to combat systems in Cyberpunk 2077, when it comes to stats specifically, like abilities, skills, and perks, we are using the base pen and paper RPG as our starting point, because let's be honest, Cyberpunk 2020 is a pen and paper role-playing game. Cyberpunk 2077 is obviously open world RPG, first person, but a video game. So we have to translate that, and we are not afraid of tweaking and adjusting the mechanics. When it comes to combat systems, we are doing it on our own. When it comes to stats and the gameplay mechanics, this is our own. When you think about the role-playing game in the first-person perspective games, like, we want the stats of the player and his playstyle, right? Because we have a fluid class system, right? That means you can mix and match different skills and abilities of different archetypes and mix them up to your liking, right? We do not want to limit player to pick up chosen path once and just go through the entire game with. We want player to actually be able to combine different elements to actually play the game as he wants. So when it comes to that, that's one of the reasons when, as you saw in the demo, the shooting mechanics are RPG driven, right? So you're not actually able to. So since they are, since this is stats driven, since this is RPG game, you are not killing enemies with just one shot. You always can see the stats and how many damages, because it's all about the system, right? Because if you wanna, like, if you invest points into this into the long range weapons, you want to see that when you're shooting the guy. And if a guy has a heavy armor, you want to see how the damage actually calculates, right? So this is one of the reasons, as you saw in the demo, the stats work in this way. So we have tech, smart, and power weapons, each of them behaving differently, and each of them has different use in different combat situations. So when you think about it this way, we even got, you know, melee combat system. Like in the game, in the demo you saw, we have the mantis blades, right? Which is very cool. And it also, it's a canon Cyberpunk 2020 kind of weapon, right? What you didn't saw in the demo is, for instance, from the melee, we also have katana, which is super cool. So I think this is how we are approached, you know, trying to vary the gameplay, to try to get the, you know, this visceral, this intense feeling that you are in shootout, but while keeping in mind that this is still an RPG, right? Like, you really want your stats to be representative, not only during the scenes where your choices are made, but also during the gameplay when you actually fight during the combat situation. So the game, obviously, as you know, takes place in Night City. Night City is a big city, right? But if you compare those two games, like the Witcher series and the Cyberpunk, I think it's safe to say that in The Witcher, our main goal was, you know, a vast landscapes. Like, this is how you express yourself in the world of The Witcher. When it comes to Cyberpunk, verticality is the key, right? In the demo, you could see the mega building when you start, right? You go out of the room of V's room, and as soon as you're entering the mega building, you're actually going to see that the building has levels, and, you know, since we are not using any procedural methods to create the environment, because we truly believe that handcrafting each element in the world is one of our key ways to achieve believability and, you know, and intent. Yeah. Okay, so the stuff I can actually talk about right now is that when it comes to the ways how you traverse the city, I can tell you, obviously, like, you can walk by foot, you can drive cars, you can shoot from the car, and you also will be able to drive a motorcycle. Okay, without going into details, because I feel this might be a bit too spoilery at this point, is that, you know, each NPC you meet will be unique, right? Like in the Witcher series, we treat NPCs as characters in the world, in the story we want to tell you. And, you know, you will be able to engage each of NPCs in a different way. In the demo, you saw Jackie, who was our companion, who was our helping out, and just, you know, being a friend. So that's all I have to say. You know what? I gotta say, I'm a great fan of Mr. Gibson's work. I mean, the Mona Lisa trilogy and the Neuromancer are one of my favorite books, you know, of Cyberpunk. And I was a bit sad when I heard about it, but to be honest, I would like to, when the game is out, I would love to send Mr. Gibson a copy and get his feedback on it.